It took a little bit for the Panthers' domination in Seattle to result in them getting the 2 points, but a performance like this is one to feel very confident about going forward.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, December 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And also follow the show on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. No underscore there. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And new customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Florida Panthers come out with a 2-1 win over the Seattle Kraken on the road from Climate Pledge Arena in a shootout. And the domination for the Florida Panthers in this one took a little bit of a while to actually help for them to get ahead, as they trailed in the first period for them, and then for the Panthers, got a late goal in the second, went on a little bit of a dry spell for them in the early parts and the middle parts of the third period, and the Panthers domination through the end of the third period carried it over to overtime. And after Sergei Bobrovsky made a big stop at the end of OT, the Panthers made easy work of the Seattle Kraken in the shootout to come out with a 2-1 shootout win to get the 2 points and continue their lead in the Atlantic Division, a 2-point lead once again for them. And here to break down this game between the Florida Panthers and the Seattle Kraken is another edition of Winans Wednesday. It is a late night Winans Wednesday edition here. Jacob Winans is back. And Jacob, as the great Scott Van Pelt says, I'm not tired yet. So welcome back to the show. And like I said in our pre-production meeting, this was a fun hockey game to watch.
Yeah, this one was awesome. And that's kind of all you can ask for these late night games. When you got a game going until almost 1 a.m., you're hoping it's at least entertaining. This one wasn't super high scoring, but we'll definitely take the entertainment value of that one, and a whole lot better than last year, getting shut out by Joey Daccord. It looked like it might be headed that way. He was standing on his head for most of the night, but incredible game, up and down action, turns into a goalie battle, and then an awesome shootout. Barkov in the shootout is must-see TV. Even if someone did fall asleep, you got to set an alarm for a shootout coming up if Barkov's going to shoot, because you don't want to miss that. And yeah, it was an awesome ending. I love the overtime, chances both ways, big saves. Sort of the chess match between coaches and the timeout used, and the 3 forward combos and the timely switches, timely line changes to the D. And it was really, really entertaining how they managed to scrape away 2 points in that one. But yeah, it was overall epic hockey game. And when we have these late puck drops, you just know it's going to go to overtime in a shootout. They're going to make us stay up as long as they possibly can. That's kind of what they do on these West Coast road trips.
Yeah, it's funny because the first few minutes of the overtime felt quick, and then the last 3 minutes felt like forever. I mean, the goalies were getting the freezes as necessary to get the proper lineups that they wanted to. Seattle more of needing that, especially with them getting the last change and setting them up. But I mean, for the beginning of this one, I mean, the Panthers really were really, aggressive with trying to activate their D in the play. For them, Gustav Forsling, Nate Schmidt were guys getting in, but then you saw odd man rushes against. I mean, Aaron Ekblad, despite the goal that he gave up with committing too much on the strong side, he was making up for some of the pinches that Gustav Forsling had in the beginning of this game. He was an active stick. There was one that he he stopped on a feed to Yanni Gordon. He also had a shorthanded chance towards the middle of the game for him right before the Panthers were really starting to really put a strangle on this game for them. But really, the Panthers missing the net a lot. The second chance opportunities where Seattle was pretty tight. They weren't chasing after checks like we saw San Jose do a lot on Saturday for them. So it really is credit to the Panthers on just how they were able to just still get through it and still uh, battle and gain the zone at times. But even though the Seattle Kraken took away their time and space, they knew that they could get the puck deep. But the thing is, perimeter based shots was really how the Panthers prevented this from spreading to a lead, even though the Panthers didn't really lead at all in this game.
Yeah, I thought the defensive strategy was interesting both ways, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that both teams traveled in the past couple of days, and
Yep.
you want to sort of play a cautious game, get your legs under you. But it kind of extended the entire length of the game. You expect, a cautious start, pack the front of the net, everything to the perimeter, at least to start the game, and then you start to open it up when they get their groove and get their rhythm. And we saw some stretches of that, so a little bit of open play, but for the most part, both teams were really just kind of folding in and packing the net front and sort of insulating the goalies in this one. Panthers got some really good chances on Joey Daccord. He had to make some pretty big time saves, but for the most part, it was a lot of that insulated center ice area. The slot was not open at all. There were a lot of block shots, a lot of shots missing the net because when it's that tight around the net front, you're trying to pick corners from far away, and it's you can shoot a lot of shots wide. So the Panthers really struggled with that, trying to break down that Seattle defense, and the neutral zone was pretty clogged up for the most part. So and ends up being a really fast-paced and physical forechecking style game, which Panthers like their odds in those type of games against anybody. But Seattle definitely had the right strategy tonight to limit the Panthers. But on the other end, Panthers did the exact same thing. They're comfortable playing that type of game. So a team in Seattle that gets a lot of rush chances. They are super fast. That is a high octane offense. The Panthers did a good job limiting that. And then on the chances they did give up, you saw some really good defensive plays. Nate Schmidt on the back check. Aaron Ekblad broke up at least 2 or 3 2-on-1s. You saw Carter Verhaeghe early on with a spectacular back check, and then it helps a lot to have the best defensive forward in the world and Sasha Barkov. He did a fantastic job sort of killing a few of those plays where Seattle could have had some established zone time.
Yeah, that and that top line for the Panthers, there were times where they were in the zone for over a minute in this one. And Nate Schmidt, you spoke about it. He even spoke about it in his intermission interview with Katie Engelson, and talk about when you have someone behind you, you better be on your horse, and then getting the puck to those guys. It's just you just have so much fun watching it. I remember there was a quote a few weeks ago how he spoke about how his gaming controller froze for a little bit, and then he got activated. He's like, oh, so that was a little. Nate Schmidt continues to be a really good quote for him, just being with the Panthers for him. And I mean, there was even a times where we saw a little bits of desperation for the Panthers, but it didn't really last too much. There was a little bit of a stretch where the Panthers were, it took them 18 minutes into the second period to, tie the game, and maybe overthinking at times when the Seattle Kraken were not getting their breakout passes out, and the Panthers were intercepting them. And there were times where there was a point where the Panthers had 2 consecutive shifts where they were offside, trying to gain the zone. And I mean, and that's a little bit of an attention to detail, but really for the Panthers after that, they weren't really overthinking on trying to gain the zone for them. So really, that is an adjustment that I'm glad that they made for when they were pinning it to the boards and all for them. So that's another thing for the Panthers. And just whenever you did see these mistakes for them, it wasn't one after another.
Yeah, they did a really good job limiting those errors, and I think for the most part it was the word I would use is composed. They played a very, very composed and controlled game. Not a whole lot of lapses, not a whole lot of overthinking, not a whole lot of indecisiveness. It was for the most part um, solid defense, block shots, retrieve pucks, quick outs. If there's not a play to be made, dump it in and chase after it and go for a check. And that's when the Panthers are at their best. It's north south. There's not a whole lot of east west, and eventually the skill is going to shine through. Even if you're playing a forechecking game, it doesn't have to be the highlight reel passes and the drop passes and the dangling through the defense. Panthers have the guys who can do that, absolutely. But that's not the type of game that they play when they're at their best. And you definitely don't want to get into a situation where you're just trading chances up and down with a team like Seattle, because that's when Seattle's at their best, is when you're playing a game where it's just trading opportunities back and forth. That gives Seattle a chance to outskill you, and that's a team that can definitely play the skill game at the highest level. So Panthers played a really composed, controlled game. Solid defense, didn't overthink the chances they got, and for the most part, I really liked everything about the game tonight. I think that was exactly what you want the Panthers system to look like, and top to bottom, all four lines, all three D pairs, and Bob, it was pretty solid, really solid effort.
Yeah, and how many times have we seen the Panthers get momentum when they either switch the lines, have a big penalty kill, and then after score a goal? That happened. That happened tonight with in the second period for them. So it's just pulling the right strings is what is the best way to put it with Paul Maurice, and just what he continues to do, and then just the timeliness of it for him, and it manifesting in making it a tie game, and then the Panthers very comfortable, like you said, in low scoring games, late situations, and the Panthers getting that next goal to eventually get a win, which of course didn't come until the shootout for them. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and discuss the moment where we knew the game was won. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday edition of the show, a Winans Wednesday edition, where the Florida Panthers defeat the Seattle Kraken on the road by a final score of 2-1 in a shootout. And now the Panthers are just one win away from against the Kraken to get it back to 500 in the all-time series. One of the rare teams that the Panthers have struggled with historically in their very short history for them, for the Seattle Kraken. But 3 stars of the game for the Florida Panthers here. I'm going to go number 3, Nate Schmidt. Like, not only was he kept, did we mention earlier about keeping up with the back check on Joey Daccord, but also keeping the time and space away from him, and as he was skating towards the corner to still get that up in transition for the game tying goal, where puck was loose. Sam Reinhart sets Aleksander Barkov, and then one times it past Joey Daccord, where after a bouncing puck, your goalie scrambling there. So just credit to Rhino and Barkov for taking advantage of that. Number 2, Mackie Samoskevich led the team with 6 shots on goal for the Panthers, got moved up to the third line. Even you mentioned it in our chat about Mackie Samoskevich and then playing with different guys. I mean, there's pros and cons to the whole 4 lines with Mackie Samoskevich on the fourth, that he could be the main playmaker there. but also needing other guys to complement his game, and the experience of Lundell, which of course for Mackie Samoskevich also includes being on power play too, which also helps bring more of that offensive power for him. But getting some time on the third line towards late game situations, and also some time in some ice time in the OT period for him. So Mackie Samoskevich is my second star of the game, and number one has to be Aleksander Barkov. Game time goal, shootout winner, a wonderful move there and also a great feed towards the end of regulation to Carter Verhaeghe. Unfortunately, it couldn't connect on the tape where the Panthers really could have ended and there, but still just constantly make it easy in the Seattle Kraken zone for them. The shots for the Corsi percentage for that Barkov line on the night, Jacob, was 77%. Just outstanding. Shane Wright had no shots on goal. He was on a 3-game goal streak before tonight. Jared McCann had 1 shot on goal for the Seattle Kraken. So limiting those guys, the guys that you need to keep an eye on. Matty Beniers had 3, but when you limit other guys who are main playmakers for the Seattle Kraken, you're doing a great job on the night. So, and it was an emotional night going against the likes of Brandon Montour and even though Josh Mahura didn't play tonight, it was a very emotional one. So thankfully for the Panthers, they were able to get to settle their emotions for a night like this.
Yeah, for sure. I think going in, it's always special seeing a former teammate that you won the cup with. The videos that came out with Montour and Mahura getting their rings, that was awesome. But pretty much right away, the second the puck drops, Montour is playing Montour's game. He early in the game, he and Tkachuk collide. Nothing dirty, nothing malicious, just playing a hard hockey game. And then he goes at Nico Mikkola, his former D partner, and tries to dangle around him, and they bump into the boards, and it's like these are great friends, but now it's a hockey game. And then late in the third period, Montour absolutely crushed Mackie on the boards. A big hit on Mackie, and then the stick comes up a little bit, caught Mackie up high, and he ends up having to leave the ice for a short time in the locker room. Came back, had some blood on the jersey, so you assume it might have been from the high stick. But yeah, I thought it was awesome seeing them get right into the game. You can't let the emotions kind of overtake things. You got to get right into the game against a former teammate, especially one as important to the group as Montour was. And Montour had some really good chances himself. Could have scored a couple of times. So I thought that aspect of the game was really cool. But yeah, like you mentioned in your 3 stars, I think the defense on the Kraken's best players was really impressive. Jared McCann's a guy who always concerns me as a matchup. He's one of the most underrated players in the NHL, but he has such a unique blend of speed and also just the heavy wrist shot. He's got a real sniper shot, and it doesn't really get talked about much, but he's incredibly fast, has great hands, and he's got a wicked shot. So he concerns me, and the Panthers shut him down. Yanni Gourde is another guy that I thought might have a game. He tends to play well against the Panthers. They shut him down for the most part. So I thought the defense on the key players on the team was huge. So I'll sort of use that to segue into my 3 stars. Third star is going to be Bob. I thought he was excellent, especially in the overtime. He was fantastic. Made a couple of big saves, and then I thought in the third period when the Panthers really needed to keep the game at a tie score while they tried to break through on Joey Daccord, did an excellent job holding serve. Every time Daccord made a big save, you need Bob to do the same thing, and he did. So he's my 3rd star. My 2nd star, this might surprise you. I thought you would think it would be the 1st star, but Barkov's my 2nd star tonight, even though he gets a goal and the shootout goal. He's my second star. I thought he was excellent. A typical Barkov game. Scores a goal, plays the best defense you've ever seen, and then absolutely destroys a goalie's ankles in the shootout. That's the Barkov hat trick. And then my first star, that was Mackie. I thought Mackie Samoskevich was excellent. This might have been his best game as a pro, and he didn't even get on the score sheet. He clearly earned the trust of the coaching staff throughout the game. Starts the game on the fourth line, moves up to the third, grabs a half shift with Barkov in the third period, and almost scores then, and then gets the ice time in overtime because of how well he was playing. He played fantastic. The legs were moving. At one point, he had like 4 shots on goal and 5 or 6 minutes of ice time. He was putting a shot on goal every minute he was out there. So I loved his game tonight, and I think I would be shocked if he doesn't end up with more ice time starting in the next one. I could see him playing third line. I could see him playing second line. He's working his way up the depth chart, and he's earning it because his game really flashed tonight. I thought he had the best legs on the team.
Yeah, and that's what speed and great hands can do for someone like Mackie Samoskevich, for him. So like we mentioned, even a few, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was time to make him an everyday player. Now, obviously, just with the Sergei Bobrovsky and the birth of his second daughter, that it's the only reason why he was out of the lineup. Other than that, you're gonna slot him in almost every day from now on. I mean, he truly has shown that he belongs. And we were even saying this even before he scored his first goal. Is like we were seeing just the attention to detail for him on what he's doing. Is just like, okay, this is the Panthers have a player here for them.
And he's starting to win board battles now too. There were a couple in the game tonight. I mean, early in the season, he's kind of getting bumped off the walls a little bit, not really winning those ones. But there were a couple tonight where he took Jamie Alexiak off the puck. And that is a massive human being. Jamie Alexiak's one of the biggest players in the NHL. And Mackie, I feel like he's kind of understood. He's a smaller player, so he's got to lower the center of gravity. He's not going to win those battles hitting guys through the chest. He's got to hit them through the hips. And there were a couple of times he got low on Alexiak. He got low on Adam Larson, just straight up knocked him off the puck. And I think that's a little tweak to his game that he's learned in the early part of this season, but it's helping him a lot because he's starting to win those board battles, which is huge in the Paul Maurice system.
Yeah, and I believe after losing that battle to Adam Fox in that Ranger game a few weeks ago, and being downgraded to the fourth line after, I think that's a little bit, maybe that could be the best thing that ever happened to him in his full rookie season for him, and just learning of how to position himself there along the boards for him. So hey, sometimes those are things that you can look back on. It's like, maybe this is something that could change, that could be a positive in the long run. Moment where we thought the game was won, I thought it was after the under 6 timeout where the Panthers really started to control the play after that, and just starting to pin the Seattle Kraken in their own end, and it was really hard for them to break out. I thought that stretch, it wasn't really a specific play. It was that stretch where I'm thinking, okay, the Panthers are going to carry that momentum into overtime, even though they really didn't necessarily do so. But they still found a way regardless of that. So that period of 6 minutes was where I thought the Panthers won the game.
Yeah, that's a good one. I kind of felt like they were going to win it in regulation the way they were playing during that stretch, but Daccord really stole Seattle a point tonight that they might not have really deserved. They played a great game, or a good game, but the chances they gave up, I think the Panthers had the better of the opportunities. They could have won that in regulation. Moment I thought the Panthers had it won was the save on Jared McCann in overtime. He came down the boards with crazy speed, and had a really good opportunity, and I thought he was going to go backhand and tuck it. And Bob shut the door on him. And at that point, I felt like, okay, that's probably the best chance the Panthers are going to give up in this overtime. Ended up not really being the best chance they gave up in overtime, but I felt like it was going to be. And I was like, mentally, I'm thinking Bob's on his game. Panthers aren't going to give up another grade A in this OT. I think they're going to win it next time they get down the ice. They end up not winning it in overtime, but I'll take the Panthers over anybody in a shootout. You got Barkov on the team. You've got Reinhart. Lundell has shown he can really break out the hands in overtime or in a shootout. Verhaeghe can score in the shootout. You got options. So I never really worried or concerned heading into the shootout. I just thought after Bob made that save on McCann, Panthers were in a good spot.
Yeah, and then the best one that Bob made in that one was shortly after Verhaeghe tried an attempt on the 5-hole 4. Joey Daccord, the Seattle Kraken, countered with Oliver Bjorkstrand, and then Sergei Bobrovsky finding a way to stop it. That was just not a lot of shot volume for him, but still found a way to get a save to still keep his team in it. And 2 straight games for Sergei Bobrovsky, giving up 1 goal for him. Dad Bob is here for the Florida Panthers. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss more about the style of play for the Panthers and how this is a positive and kind of a conversation in relation to how we were feeling a week ago and in a loss, and now it's talking about the same thing in a win. We're going to talk about this more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. Here's why you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. No need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where you select player projections are discounted up to $25. This week on Prize Picks, I'm eyeing the hockey board. If you're thinking, I'm looking at Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal and Artemi Panarin for more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make my picks and have more fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, December 11th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday, where the Panthers win 2-1 in a shootout against the Seattle Kraken to start off this West Coast trip on a good note for them. And Jacob, it's funny, this conversation that we were having with the Panthers a week ago, it's so crazy how dominant play, rush chances against, but the difference is obviously finishing. And we're not going to pretend like the Seattle Kraken are at the same skill level of the stars like a Sidney Crosby or of Evgeny Malkin. But I mean, for the Panthers, when you think about structurally and you think about suppressing shots, getting in deep, forechecking, this is so much of what we saw in the postseason for them, especially in the Rangers series, and then at times in the Boston series for them. The PDO might not look high for the Panthers when you see maybe a goal in 16 shots for Sergei Bobrovsky on one end, but when you think about possession, that's the key. It's like kind of like running the football and running out that time. The Panthers know how to do that best when it comes to getting the puck and also overwhelming the opposition. And this is one game, and like we've seen throughout this stretch of 7 games where they're 6-0-1, this is once again bread and butter. This is something that I've repeated a lot throughout these last few weeks of the Panthers continuing their system and I know it's only December and we're like 4 months away from the postseason, but it's just like, man, can we get to April already for this Florida Panthers team?
Yeah, there's a couple things I think that are really contributing to it. One, they're healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big benefit to have everybody in the lineup right now, and that's something we can't take for granted. The rest of the season, to the long season, we're going to have injuries. There's going to be guys who miss games. That's inevitable. Panthers already had to weather the storm a little bit with the injury bug early in the season. So you want to continue this run of health as long as possible. But when they're healthy, they're able to build continuity on the lines, which has gone a long way because the chemistry starting to shine through, especially on the top line. Barkov, Reinhart, Verhage, they look excellent together right now. Bennett and Tkachuk have found their rhythm together again. Lundell and Lustorainen are playing fantastic together. And Greer and Nosek are finally starting to build a little bit of chemistry. They're starting to cycle the puck a lot together, and they're starting to really apply the forecheck. So having health is huge. The blue line especially with Ekblad and Forsling getting to play together again. And so far, knock on wood, fingers crossed, Aaron Ekblad has played and has stayed injury-free to start the year. So that's a big plus. Beyond that, there's definitely been buy-in and commitment to the system, especially with a lot of the new guys. Jesper Boquist, we spoke about him last week. He's been awesome in whatever role he's been put in. And just look at tonight. Starts the game on the second line. Later on in the game, gets bumped down to the third line. And by the end of the night, he's playing on the fourth line. He played on 3 separate lines in this game. And doesn't change a thing about the way he plays. Wherever he is in the lineup, he's playing the same way. He's giving you the same effort. He doesn't change. He doesn't change the way he plays the game at all. And he's a total buy-in player. And that's something the Panthers really have been able to benefit from across the board. They've gotten buy-in to the system. And the beautiful thing about the way they're playing right now is some nights that's going to get you a 5-1, 6-1 win. And some nights it's going to get you a 2-1 win or a 2-0. But it doesn't change anything about the way they're playing. And we've seen really the whole spectrum on this point streak. We've seen blowouts. We've seen them run up the score on some teams. And we've also seen them be in some nail biters, but the system has remained the same. So that's the best thing about the way they're playing right now is it's not chasing goals. It's not scoreboard dependent. They're not looking to run everybody out of the building. They're playing the same way. And sometimes it gets you a lot on the scoreboard. Sometimes it doesn't. But more often than not, it gets you points and it gets you wins. So I love the way they're playing right now. And it looks like a team that is at least maybe not necessarily postseason ready, but they're definitely building toward it. And I think they're in a really good position.
And Jesper Boquist, like you said, played on 3 different lines. He ended up being at an ice time of 12 minutes and 13 seconds. I'm looking at Mackie Samoskevich's time on ice, 10 minutes and 36 seconds. And we spoke about the leading the shots, just like you said, it was consecutive shifts of him getting a shot, 17 shifts total for him. But also, once again, the physicality that the Panthers are bringing every single night. I mean, there was a stat on the broadcast tonight. They're second in the league in hits. I mean, the hit discrepancy for them is also sometimes in games just a wide margin, and that's so big when it comes to separating pucks and then getting out into transition game, which we can't deny that the Panthers have been a little bit more of a transition team this season, but it's also based on the skaters that they've brought in. Jesper Boquist is a good hands plus speed for him. Mackie Samoskevich, and then of course the three other defensemen that they bring in. I mean, even though Adam Boquist hasn't really played, I mean, we know that he could skate and carry the puck on the blue line for the Panthers. So I mean, it's a result of those guys of just who they signed. AJ Greer's not really on the foot speed for the Panthers, but still we've seen them more of a north, like you said, north-south team and more of a speed team, but also bringing in that, because of the fact that they're able to be so physical for them, it gives them those opportunities for those odd man rushes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's, like you said, bread and butter. That's kind of what they do physicality wise. They sort of use it in 2 different ways. One way that they use it is on the forecheck. They dump the puck in, they retrieve it, and they lay a hit on a defenseman to try to get the puck back. And they're the best in the NHL at it. And they use their physicality for offense in that way. But another way that they use their physicality is in their own zone when they have to win a board battle, or if the puck is on the boards or on the perimeter and they have a chance to lay a hit on a forward. separate man from puck and then get a quick breakout, it serves two purposes. You have that hit to force the turnover, and then more often than not, the guy who got hit is the last guy back. So in that case, now you've got an extra man up the ice, and we've seen that turn into a lot of 3-on-2s where a guy like Forsling maybe jumps up, or they're able to get a quick breakout to a forward, and then you've got a 3-on-2, and you've got a forward defensively for the other team late getting back because he's the one who just got hit and separated from the puck. So it helps a lot it helps to be physical in the NHL. It's something the Panthers struggled with for a long time, but the Paul Maurice system is all about physicality, and if you're not going to be physical, you're not going to play. So they've really used it to their advantage. And Seattle, I know they're hovering right around 500 right now. I know they don't necessarily have the huge names and the superstar players, but that's a team that can definitely score. Jared McCann's a 40-goal scorer. Matty Beniers just a couple years ago is the best rookie in the NHL. Bjorkstrand is a guy who can put up 30 goals any given season. Yanni Gourde's a Stanley Cup champion. Like, that's a team that has some really, really good forward talent, and the Panthers did a great job being physical on them, separating them from pucks and keeping them on the perimeter.
Yeah, and let's not forget Jordan Eberle, even though he didn't play tonight for the Seattle Kraken. When he's in the lineup, he's definitely a big difference maker. World Junior hero, Jordan Eberle.
Yep, and then you've got Andre Burakovsky, a Stanley Cup champion 2 times, Colorado and Washington.
Yep, for sure. And also, we going back to the hits, Sam Bennett, 6 hits. Although his point streak came to an end, still a monster for the Panthers, and as far as the physicality for them. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers win 2-1 in a shootout against the Seattle Kraken. And let's continue this road trip strong, baby. So just a fun hockey game that we got to watch tonight. So tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. Always a pleasure to be on these late night ones. You get a couple of them a year, but hope you have some caffeine because the rest of the road trip is still West Coast. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna hit the hay after this one.
No doubt. It's 2:09 a.m. Let's get to bed, my friend. So thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jump into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, and Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.